Welcome back to the Cardinals Off Day podcast. Cardinals have had a long stretch of games, and that means that Ben and I have had a long stretch of relaxing, not having to record. Ben took his family to St. Louis, so lots has happened, but we're back now. We're dropping this pod today on June 3rd. We got another off day June 7th, and then the All-Star break right after that. So we will be spending a lot of time with you. And when I say we, I am not just referring to myself, Ben Godar. I'm also referring to my good friend, Ben Humphrey. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. We had a wonderful trip to St. Louis. Did a lot of St. Louis things like the City Museum, the top of the Gateway Arch, the zoo, the aquarium, and of course Busch Stadium for a Cardinals game. And I feel like I'm still recovering from watching extra innings in the heat. But our children all enjoyed the game and are already asking about when we are going back. So I'm doing really well. I have one Four Hands Brewing Company Voltron Hazy IPAs left, and I'm enjoying that right now while we record because I feel like I'm in a real St. Louis state of mind.
That sounds lovely, and you should be commended for taking three children, two quite young children, to a game in that heat and making it all the way through extra innings. That's kind of above and beyond right there.
Well, we stayed. There's a good family hack for Busch Stadium, and it's the Redbird Club, which has covered seating with large fans that are constantly on, and it is connected to an air-conditioned part of Busch Stadium. So every time you take them to get something to eat or drink, you're taking them out of the heat and into the air conditioning. So that definitely helped us avoid what was just horrible weather. I mean, just completely hellacious heat. I felt really bad. It looked like they only made Fredbird do pregame stuff, and then the first two innings he was in Ford Plaza, and then I didn't see him until he emerged after extra innings with the "That's a winner" flag and waved it in the outfield. And I think it would have been an OSHA violation perhaps if they would have made him work, or her work. I'm not sure who's playing Fredbird nowadays, but would have made the person who's wearing the Fredbird costume work during that game on Saturday. It was brutal.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was, now that Fredbird is a Hall of Famer, maybe Fredbird was like, look, I'm only working, I'm coming out twice during the game. I am a legend.
He's like The Rock and John Cena with WWE. I'm only doing 17 dates over the year. And I have to be the world champion during 15 of those 17 dates. So
yes, that is exactly what Fredbird is doing. Yes. Exactly what Fredbird is doing, and much respect to him for that. So we are, full disclosure to our listeners, we're actually recording this about a week ahead of when you're going to be watching it, because I've got some travel planned and holiday stuff's coming up and all kinds of scheduling things. But actually it works out well. We had two dates kind of bunched together anyway, and as Ben and I sit here recording, the Cardinals are finishing up their 81st game of the season. So we're at the exact midway point as we record this. So Ben and I thought we'd give away some mid-season awards. Ben, do you want to kick us off with your first mid-season award?
Yeah, my first mid-season award is going to go. It is. I have titled it the Moneyball "It's Not Hard, It's Incredibly Hard" award, and this is, of course, after the movie adaptation starring Brad Pitt, when he and the actor whose name escapes me, but who is playing Ron Washington, sit down with Scott Hatteberg to convince him to move to first base, and Brad Pitt says, "It's not hard, tell him, Wash," and then Wash says, "It's incredibly hard." And this award goes to Wilson Contreras for moving from catcher to first base and doing it aplomb. By outs above average, the StatCast defensive metric available on Baseball Savant, which is our Cardinals off-day preferred defensive metric, halfway through the season, Wilson Contreras is a top 5 first baseman defensively, and I think it's pretty safe to say he'll probably be a top 10 defensive third baseman by the end of the year. And you might not know it, though, listening to Chip Carey and his rotating cast of color analysts, because I feel like it's kind of flown under the radar. And I know that he's not boring like Paul Goldschmidt and acts like he's selling insurance in a cube farm. He plays with a little bit of pizzazz out there as well, which I really enjoy. And so I wanted to just take a moment to say that and recognize that there was never any guarantee that this transition was going to go smoothly. But it's very clear that Wilson Contreras put in the work to make it go as well as it could. And I think it's going better than anyone had any right to expect through the first half of the season. And frankly, I think it's pretty impressive. And again, he does everything with a little bit of... It's almost like professional wrestling, Ben. Like there's a little bit of an extra sell job to every stretch, to every underhanded toss. When he's saying obscenities to Rhys Hoskins at first base.
I was gonna say he got more heat in that Milwaukee series than I've seen a single player get in some time.
Like everything.
Yachty was watching at home and he was like, "Baby, cool off a little, bro."
Yeah. He's like, "You don't have the catcher's mask on anymore. You got to tone it down. You're not hidden. You're out there for everyone to see." So I think it's been very impressive. And it merits our first midseason award because he's been a very, very good defensive first baseman. And I think maybe an underappreciated or underrecognized component part of the very good fielding club that the Cardinals have put together this year.
Yeah, no, that is an excellent award. Mr. Contreras, very deserving of that. Ben, for my first award, I'm going to kind of keep with the theme of going better than we would have expected. Ben, I have titled this the Hands on a Hard Body Award. Did you ever see the documentary Hands on a Hard Body?
I have not seen that documentary.
Okay, so it sounds more salacious than it is. It was actually a documentary about one of those contests they would do, like a radio station where like people had to like keep their hands on a pickup truck or something.
Sure.
And like whoever was the last one to take their hand off, won the truck. It's a pretty good documentary. It's probably 25 years old now, but you follow the kind of some of the folks that are like holding out on this, who of course are, in like desperate circumstances and interesting folks and all that kind of stuff. But why do I bring up a documentary from many years ago? Because of course the purpose of these contests, keep your hand on until as long as you can, and that's how you win. And I feel like in some ways that's what the Cardinals rotation has been doing. So I'm giving the Hands on a Hard Body Award to the Cardinals rotation because, Ben, they're all still touching the pickup truck. And I genuinely thought we would have one or two of them slip off by this point. But the starting staff has been kind of an unexpected strength of this team so far. And we've talked about this a lot, usually in the midst of questions asking us, when in God's name are they going to dump, Michaelis, Fetty, Palante, typically. But Ben, just as I looked through some stats today, the Cardinals starting rotation compared to other starting rotations in baseball, 4th in fielding independent pitching. 7th in wins above replacement, which is also in part because they're 6th in innings pitched. So they're giving a lot of and the Cardinals have definitely emphasized innings for many years now. Often those were bad innings. Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson definitely gave them innings last year. I don't know that we feel good about they did, but they're getting a lot of innings out of their starting rotation. And overall, they're pretty good innings, and it's been across the board too, Ben. And that's why I'm giving this to the whole group. in terms of their innings pitched, again, as we record this, they're all somewhere between 77 and 86 innings pitched. Nobody's hit the DL. We've had, McGreevy take a couple kind of starts, when we've got like double headers or, really long stretches or things like that. But, these guys are getting it done. Every single one of them. The league average FIP is 4.12. Every single Cardinal starter is better than that, except for Palante, and I think he's like 4.3 or something. He's not too far off. So, again, I think in some cases, I think some of the performance is outpacing the metrics a little bit, but not not necessarily to an insane degree. And really, even when a Michaelis or a Fetty or whoever just has kind of washes out to the point they have to change them out, I think they've already given us well more value than we really had any business expecting. I mean, this has got to be like in the 97th percentile of possible results for this pitching staff, and that is why I am awarding them the Hands on a Hard Body Award.
And Fetty is really defying gravity, and he's been terrible. And as we record, the Cardinals are losing to the Cubs because, in large part, Eric Fetty's pitching. But I really feel like Michael McGreevy is a worthy heir of either the Fetty or Michaelis rotation spot, because he looks like the same basic type of pitcher that they are, where he doesn't have a fastball that's all that good, not good enough to challenge too many hitters and win, and he's got to rely on the off-speed stuff to get them out. So even if one of these guys falters to the point where they cut bait, they're going to plug in the league minimum college high floor, low ceiling draftee to fill that spot, and it's just going to be more of the same. And I am interested to see how long does the fielding kind of help prop them up a little bit, because the batted balls do find the outfield grass, and they went through a little stretch where that happened to start the year, and then they went through a little stretch earlier in the month when that happened as well. And so you do kind of worry about maybe a longer stretch, and can the team weather that type of storm?
Yeah, I hear you, Ben. But as I just really kind of sat down and looked at the numbers today too, it's really not that bad for any of them. You don't have a situation where a guy's got a 3 ERA and a 6 FIP or something like that. Yeah. There's some. In fact, I don't think anyone was even in the 5s as far as xFIP, at least as I look today. So a few guys are their FIP's a little bit ahead of that, but more or less you're what you're seeing is what you're getting. So. Anyway, won't hold out forever, but holding out pretty well for now. Ben, why don't we throw it over to you? What is your second award?
Mine is the Ryan Franklin Reliever Regression Award. And I would like to start this off with the caveat that too often people use regression when it comes to athletic performance to mean a player gets worse than what they were. And regression can go both ways. You can have someone who their stats, like Wilson Contreras, for example. His batting line this year is it's not bad, but it's not great. But you would expect it to improve based on the quality of contact and the quality of his plate appearances up to this year. You would expect it to regress upward, his production. But oftentimes regression is downward, and that is the case here. And Ryan Franklin's just totally cratered to the point that you would almost expect upward regression, for those of you who remember Ryan Franklin, closer of the St. Louis Cardinals. But this year, this award goes to Ryan Helsley And it turns out that it looks like the overwhelming evidence is that his 2024 was the aberration. Like he's not that good. Very few relievers are, so I don't mean that as like an insult. And this year, you've seen the quality of contact against him go back up. In particular, the hard hit percentage, and hard hit balls are 95 miles per hour and up. And he's giving up more of those again this year, and it's more in line with the seasons that predated 2024. I mean, in short, Ryan Helsley looks in 2025 like the reliever that we saw before 2024. And so more and more, it seems that his true talent level, which should not be surprising, but is below that which we saw last year. And I would also like to take this opportunity to get a little jab in on the media and the way that they covered Oliver Marmol in the offseason, where they wanted to give him credit for Ryan Helsley's 2024, but he's using Helsley the same way in 2025, and the results are different. So is it the manager's fault now? No. And the manager got too much credit for Helsley's performance last year. And now we're seeing a little bit of regression, and it's a little bit, it makes for a little bit too interesting of a ninth inning. So much so that our good friend Dan Chidnall, who does our social media, Ben, has started conjuring up memories of Jason Isringhausen in the group text thread when Helsley comes into the game. And it wouldn't be a St. Louis Cardinals season if we were not riding the Izzy train in the ninth inning when our closer came in. Because even Trevor Rosenthal ultimately wound up getting similar comparisons towards the end of his Cardinals tenure. So our Ryan Franklin Memorial Reliever Regression Award goes to Ryan Helsley. How are you feeling about Hell's Bells this year?
Oh, I think you pretty well summed it up. Last year definitely looking like a little more of an aberration, but still an excellent reliever. But always just a good reminder that any reliever, even an elite reliever, is just kind of a whisper away from vanishing into the oblivion. But we'll see. Hopefully he can, I don't know, maintain, improve. We'll see. The Isringhausen thing is definitely there. He comes in, it's like there's going to be men on base. You just kind of know it.
While we're talking about... No, I was just going to say, while we're talking about Isringhausen, do you remember when I wrote the post at Viva Albertos about how he was like one of the greatest Cardinals closers in history, and I used advanced stats like to support my post? And then on Twitter, Jason Isringhausen quote tweeted the Viva Albertos post of the blog post and called my post, which was praising him, saber crap. Do you recall that?
I think I do, yeah. But
so it just makes me wonder, like, what would Jason Isringhausen think of Baseball Savant? What does he? I guess he works for the Cardinals now.
Well,
right?
He does. He does, and they speak really well of him in terms of development. So it does make me wonder if he had an awakening at some point in time, because he's one of the guys that's actually like working with the players and not just kind of like popping in for a little FaceTime. Unlike Jim Edmonds, they let him actually work with the players.
But it's also funny because he's working with all these kids who like this is just like they're like fish in water and this is the water. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and Isringhausen's like, what is this? And so I've always kind of wondered about what that dynamic must be like. But I'm interested.
He drives them up to Alton, Illinois. He takes them to Fast Eddie's, It's a good time.
He develops that bond. He teaches them to punch with their left hand, or their right hand, their glove hand. And But so do you think this is it for Helsley in St. Louis, or do you think what do you think the odds are?
Because I just don't think. I mean, you just don't sign closers to long-term deals. Teams shouldn't do it. The Cardinals don't do it. So I do think there's a very good chance he finishes out the season, but they won't. They won't sign him, and that that's just the natural order of things. I'm unbothered by it. All right, Ben, I am going to move us along to my second award, and I'm calling this the Child Born of Two Fathers Award, Ben. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. This is a call out to the movie Platoon, of course.
Yes.
Charlie Sheen, referring to Tom Berenger and Willem Dafoe. Very powerful scene at the end of that movie. But when I think about a Platoon, I had, previously thought a lot about Alec Burleson. And if his two fathers were right-handed pitchers and left-handed pitchers, one of them was much better for him than the other. So, and I think I've actually kind of harped on this, right? So coming into this year, Burleson against left-handed pitching had a 49 weighted runs created plus, a slash line of 209, 244, 288. I know I pointed out that at one time, I think it was maybe last season's numbers, Burleson was worse against left-handed pitching than Michael Ciani was against left-handed pitching. Like, it was shocking, right? And, I had kind of written him off. Well, Ben, I don't know if you've noticed, but, he is hitting left-handed pitching, all of a sudden, pretty consistently. Now, the caveat we have to give is they were definitely platooning him, for the first couple months. And it's really just here maybe in the last month or so that he's, seeing more than just kind of spotty plate appearances against left-handed pitching. But this year, his splits against lefty, against righty, 123 and 124 weighted runs created plus. So, the same guy. His slash line against lefties, 289, 325, 474. And again, you looked at the one previously, he wasn't getting on base and he wasn't hitting with any authority, right? So that's part of the reason I was like, I don't see, I don't see a lot here. He's doing both this season. So, I think it's been a short window of time, so we have to give it that asterisk. This could be a momentary illusion, but it's been pretty dramatic and pretty across the board, so I tend to kind of buy into it. The other thing, Ben, is his defensive value we've been I would say highly skeptic of, and he is not good, but again, in not a ton of examples, he is performing better this season than he has in previous seasons, it would seem. So, again, looking at StatCast outs above average, his currently outs above average is for the year is at 0. And that would be his best by far, right? So he's generally in the negative. He was 8 runs to the negative last year. He was 10 runs to the negative the season before that. You got to keep in mind these are counting stats, so a lot relates to how much playing time they have at position, what position they're at, etc. But I mean, regardless, what that tells you is they're finding a way to use him where he's not a gigantic defensive liability. And right. That's a level that when you if you combine that, and I see his range, his fielding run value at Savant, he's in the 43rd percentile, which if that's the value he can give you defensively, and he can maintain a 125 weighted runs created plus against both sides of the plate, then sorry, Jordan Walker, your job is gone, right? He's gonna, he's gonna stick out there. And so, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some what ifs there. I think he's still fringy, but he's moving in the right direction. I think showing that he's not just necessarily, has to be a platoon player. And that is why I have awarded him the Child Born of Two Fathers award as I fly away in the helicopter.
I think that I have trouble with his fielding, which has improved. Watching it has improved. But it gets really old really fast having, Rooney and Horton or Carey and Thompson. Like, he saunters after a ball and, like, stumbles into the grass and gets grass stains on his jersey and, like, catches the ball and does his burly smile, and everyone is falling over themselves over the play. And it's like, Jordan Walker catches that standing up. So does, 60% of major league outfielders. And I think that has created a mental block for me where it's like, it feels like he is graded on a curve because he has established himself as poor defensively. And so when he does something that has the aesthetics of a good play, like he dives, whereas like when Victor Scott dives, he's making a play that no one else can make, or like two other guys in the league can make. When Burley dives, he's making a play that, 37 other right fielders would have made without diving.
Yeah, but Ben, I think aesthetically though, I think we're susceptible to undervaluing him too, because he's, to put it delicately, a fat guy in the outfield. And so just looking at some of the measurements on him and just kind of thinking about that, he doesn't look athletic out there, but it's certainly compared to like a Jordan Walker. But Burleson seems to just have a very good first step, gets like great reads, and so I think it can work that way too, where the aesthetics don't look great. It honestly, it reminds me of Paul DeYoung, right? And we kind of talked about that with Paul DeYoung for all the years that he was here. His defensive metrics, in his case, of course, were excellent, but people didn't necessarily think of him that way or give him credit for that because he wasn't making spectacular plays. He wasn't going a long way for things, but he was like very solid and very consistent, and the value kind of built up. So, in Burleson's case, we're talking about maybe value building up to the point that like you're not in the hole for having him out there. But I'm choosing to be optimistic on him, Ben, and that's why I'm giving him the Child Born of Two Fathers award. What do you have for a third award for us?
I have the Turner Ward Dead Cat Bounce Award for hitting coach Brant Brown. And let me first of all say, listeners of course know that we have appreciated and been complimentary about what we have seen this year from Cardinals hitters, and justifiably so. There is improvement from a year ago, and it does look like there's more of a game plan. There's more of a mental approach to plate appearances than there was under Turner Ward, who was Paul Goldschmidt's buddy, and Oliver Marmol and John Mozeliak led from behind and hired him as the hitting coach. I don't think there's any way to describe his tenure other than a failure. And so last year, it was really weird because the team succeeded in a way that I don't think many people thought they would, where the pitching, they succeeded because of their pitching, because their offense wasn't very good. And there were a lot of underperforming years last year. And now we have Brant Brown, and we have some very good performances. But we also have some players who, have struggled to put things together, like Jordan Walker. Lars Nootbaar has fallen off. Now he appears to be climbing back up. And I think that there's a bit of a dead cat bounce here where we talked about regression. And a lot of players, if you just looked at their 2024, the best bet was that they would be better in 2025 because it was highly unlikely they would be that bad again. And so I think there's a degree of that. But I also think that Brown deserves credit for helping some of the players with less big league experience kind of weather some of these slumps or rough starts and then reemerge you're seeing Nolan Gorman do it. You're seeing Alec Burleson, who you just talked about. He got off to a very slow start after ending last year on just a downward plunge. Like he had that solid like May into June and then was not good for an extended period of time. And then you have Brendan Donovan seemingly finally reaching that level that seemed like he was capable of hitting at, which is great to see. And then Victor Scott had a good start, and now he's down in a valley, and how will he come out of it? That remains to be seen. So I think that the Cardinals did well to hire Skip Schumacher's former coaches. In John Jay and Brant Brown, it seems to have paid dividends in terms of outfield defense in Jay's case, and then at the plate in Brown's case. And I should also say that Albert Pujols endorsed Brown as helping him get back on track during his time with the Dodgers, which is one of the reasons that the Cardinals hired him. And so it's a little tongue-in-cheek with the dead cat bounce, because where were you going to go from last year but up? But I think overall the trajectory of what they're doing and the process that is seeing that upward swing is a positive, and I think it's a good development for the organization overall and the big league club in particular. So Mr. Brown wins the Turner Ward Dead Cat Bounce Award for the first half of this season.
Absolutely. When we've talked about coaches, I feel like it's one of the hardest things to evaluate. Is this a good hitting coach? Is this a good pitching coach? Those kind of things. Because, at the end of the day, it's the player doing it, right? And they're working with all these different players. And so on any team in any season, you've got guys performing well and you've got guys performing poorly. So there's just too many variables there. That said, I think when you see something like you've seen with this Cardinals team in the first half of the year, which is the, majority, kind of strong majority of players hitting, better than was expected, that's when you kind of can start to feel like, okay, well, maybe this is a sign of coaching here, right? Because it just feels like we're kind of seeing this not just in kind of isolated pockets here and there, but it looks like almost on like a team level something's been adopted. So I definitely hoping that continues in the second half. And speaking of which, I think one of those players who is performing at a high level offensively is going to be the recipient of my Rodney Dangerfield Can't Get No Respect Award. And Ben, I'm giving that to Brendan Donovan, because Brendan Donovan is really good at baseball, and I don't think Cardinals fans even realize how good he is, and I would include myself in that, for most of his career. And I know that the broader baseball landscape doesn't realize how good he is. I don't really care about all-star fan voting, and I never have. That said, the fact that Brendan Donovan is 10th at second base, as I looked at it the other day, is shameful and a mark of the fall of this great nation. So Ben, he just to give you a little context for him this season, among all National League second basemen, his 2.3 wins above replacement is first. But of course, he does split time also in left field. If you categorize him as a left fielder, he would actually be second among all NL left fielders, behind only James Wood of the Nationals. So he's by wins above replacement, been the best second baseman in the league and the second best left fielder. Why doesn't he get the recognition? Well, I think it's a couple things. He remains a multi-position guy, so he has a little bit of that kind of utility guy thing on him. But, the other thing, Ben, I just think is really interesting, and I'm looking at his Savant page here, and, it's a lot of red, of course. Most of these sliders are cranked all the way to the right. But interestingly, the three that are, pretty far to the left are his bat speed, 11th percentile, his arm strength, 20th percentile, and his sprint speed, 32nd percentile. And those are like the 3 raw tool places, right? Like a guy's bat speed, his arm strength, his sprint speed. You can just see that and be like, wow, that was like physically impressive. And that is not Brendan Donovan, right? He doesn't do that. But, his, just his ability to barrel the ball, right? His squared up percentage they have here, 96th percentile. Sweet spot percentage, 95th percentile. And then also his whiffs and strikeouts, 95th and 92nd percentile. He doesn't swing and miss. So, I think he's very, very good. And frankly, he's the kind of player that I think it's easy to like too, because this is a kind of a real example of that sort of like, the term grinder gets thrown around a lot and stuff like that, right? But this is just clearly a guy that didn't, he's not coming in with any elite tool. So I just think you have to credit the work that he's done throughout his, baseball life to, maximize, these other things and become the player that he is. So Brendan Donovan, I think hopefully will still find his way into the All-Star game because they're legally required to put at least one Cardinal in there, Ben. But he deserves a little more, deserves a little more love and respect than he's getting, and that's why I'm giving him the Rodney Dangerfield Can't Get No Respect Award.
Very well deserved, and he has been fantastic. Like, he is really pieced it together in a way where it feels a lot like 2013 Matt Carpenter to me, where he just put it together and hit 50-some doubles and, really kind of he was on a very good Cardinals team, which helped him climb into the national consciousness as a ball player. And then he even had another level in there when he just became a home run hitter. And I don't know if Donovan has that in him, but this season really feels like the coming out party for Brendan Donovan.
Ben, it's funny you mentioned that 2013 Matt Carpenter season, because I actually looked it up before the podcast as well, because I was just thinking, 2.3 wins above replacement as we record this. So he's basically at like 2.5 first halfway. So, he's on pace to be, approaching like a 5-win season as a second baseman. And I thought to myself, I wonder how that compares to, boy, I wonder if that might be better than Carpenter in 2013. No, Carpenter was like 7.2. Yeah. Like Carpenter was like just,
Carpenter, it was quite the year, man.
And probably a worse defender than Brendan Donovan too. So, that was just an insane season with the bat, which we all remember. But the numbers definitely support that as well.
It's the walks. I mean, he was doing all this and walking at a like 10% clip, and I think Donovan's walking at like a 5% clip. So like.
Yeah, he's like middle of the road percentile wise in walks in the league. So he's about average.
So like it gives you a greater appreciation for Matt Carpenter that as good as Brendan Donovan has been, it's not going to be quite that level. Right. But it still feels like just kind of the way he is, the way his plate appearances go, like he knows what he's doing and he's driving that plate appearance. Like, and he feels in control. And it's fun when a hitter reaches that level, because the Cardinals haven't had a lot of that lately.
And Ben, I like what you said there about being in control, because you're exactly right. And it is exciting to watch players with like eye-popping tools, and like touching 104 on the radar gun kind of stuff. But it is also very fun to watch players that are just really skilled professionals, that just, they know how to ply their trade. And Donovan has been that kind of guy. And he's basically been he has been that kind of guy since he entered the league, I mean, it's one of those things, sometimes you see guys evolve to later on. He just hasn't had the raw tools. That's what he has to do, but he's done it very well. As have many of these folks we gave awards out here to today. Ben, I think I hope they value these. I hope they find a place on their mantle. Anything else you want to say about the these awards or this first half here before we wrap it up?
I would just like to say that no one should take umbrage at not receiving an award. We don't do participation awards here on Cardinals Off Day. We cannot make everyone happy. Just because you did not win an award, that's not an endorsement or an indictment of your performance in the first half. I mean, for example, I think we would all agree that Mason Wynn is the MVP of the club.
Right, but neither one of us could think of a particularly surprising stat and fun name for the award related to that stat, and so that's why Mason Wynn's not getting an award today.
Right, and it's just like he's really good, and we all know that. So, like, what do you give him? The Mason Wynn award?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, what award would you have given Albert Pujols the first 10 years of his season? About what we expected award. So
yes, right.
Yeah,
the metronome, like tick tock tick award, like it's so we tried to have a little bit of fun on with this award and tried to kind of dig down into things and make it a little bit insightful as well. So just because someone did not win an award does not mean that we don't think they're good or that we don't think that they're bad. It was just we only have so much time to praise and criticize.
Yeah, some of these guys are trash, and we also weren't able to come up with a stat and a name to just really dunk on them either. So you're right, it did kind of go in both directions. At any rate, if there is someone that we missed who you think is particularly notable, particularly if you have a very good name for an award to give them, feel free to share that with us on Blue Sky or on the Cardinals Discord or anywhere else you might find us. We're going to wrap it up for today. Again, you should be hearing this on the 3rd, on July 3rd. We plan to be back with you with a more fresh episode on the 7th, and then, of course, with you for the All-Star break. So thanks, as always, for joining us on another Cardinals Off Day.
Go